Welcome to Stratwatch. In this episode, we'll be covering Luminosity Gaming's push on the second portion of Hollywood in the payload portion of the map. Specifically, we'll be covering the importance of individual decisions and how they can open up opportunities for your team and allow your team to win when those plays are created. My name is RaptorZ, and I'll be bringing you the commentary and analysis for this series. Here in episode 4, we're going to be covering the importance of what two individuals or many individuals can do in a game for you. While this series is dedicated to strategies and tactics, it's incredibly important to remember how much an individual and their decisions and their playmaking can actually shape the outcome of a game. Every single time a strategy is executed well, it implies that there are some individuals who are excelling at their positions and doing more than what you would expect out of them. Specifically in this game, while the offensive strategy is very stable and strong, with mobility with the Winstons as well as the 3 DPS being decently mobile, this game truly came down to the fact that Seagull and Enigma made very strong individual decisions, incredible plays, and set their team up to be in a position to win regardless of the strategy they were running. Specifically in the second to last play, Seagull was able to push in and zone back the entirety of EnvyUs by himself. He almost kills the Mercy, forces the McCree, Lucio, the Reinhardt, and one other hero, I believe it was the May, to actually sit there and deal with him. Meanwhile, his entire team with the sound barrier was pushing the control point. This entire game was shaped by the decisions of Seagull and Enigma. And so this episode will be dedicated and focus on how individuals make those decisions, what decisions are made at that point in time, and when those decisions are made to the most effective nature, how much of an impact it actually has on a game. Brief context in this game. At the beginning of this second portion of Hollywood for the payload, Luminosity Gaming gets completely stalled up with their Pharah as well as Enigma on Zarya. This forces a switch to Genji and double Winston. Although the double Winstons die off the bat on their first push here, they do get a lot more done than they were before. The entirety of this time, EnvyUs has been set up on this top building and has been dominating the control of the high ground and forcing Luminosity into disadvantaged fights. But here is the beginning of the change. Tailspin and Coolmat have been set up on top of this building the entire time. But Seagull flanks around. And Seagull, as you can see here if you pay attention in the top right, is at half health. He dropped down, picked up a health pack at 20 HP, and goes back down to 20 HP again. This entire time, 3 members, specifically Ross on Tailspin healing him up, but Coolmat and Minstrel are having to focus and try to kill Seagull. While Gods does die here on the high noon trade against Tailspin, Milo is able to get on Tailspin by himself. At this point, there's Stoop and JKW who had already died, JKW to Gods, and now Tailspin is going to go down to Milo. Now, this entire time that this left-hand portion of the fight is happening, there is no presence from EnvyUs to back up Tailspin, because Seagull was able to survive at 20 HP for the entirety of this situation. Because he was able to do that and because he was able to draw so much attention, Luminosity ends up taking this point. Again, we'll go ahead and watch this back at a closer full speed to see exactly what ends up happening as to how Seagull survives so long. Although we cannot control the camera, if you pay attention throughout this in the top right, Seagull drops down to 20 HP twice. Both of the Winstons go up to create space. Give an opportunity. Although the barriers both miss and they both die, Seagull goes in anyways. Against 5 heroes, he's fighting, he's charging, and he ends up getting dropped down to super low HP. This is where he first drops down and dashes over to the other health pack. He's going to be able to get it and go back up to full health. Meanwhile, again, Gods over here is able to kill JKM, dies when he's using the high noon to Tailspin, but that opens up an opportunity because Seagull is out there fighting 2 heroes by himself and 3 at the max, for Milo to be able to take out Tailspin. With the right side of the fight collapsing, or the left side if you're oriented from the defense, Seagull survives again the entire time and is able to group up with his team, with the right side collapsing, the left side won, and they're able to get this first checkpoint. After being stalled up for almost 2.5 minutes straight with going nowhere on this part of the map. So again, specifically in this first part, it matters a lot that Seagull was able to survive. It created the opportunity that his team needed to be able to take out Tailspin. And when Tailspin was down, their entire team was able to push up without any threat of high ground or sniper cover from her. Now, on this second portion, the amount of tempo that is lost from EnvyUs is extremely high. They end up falling all the way back to the end of the corridor, as you can see. They feel the need to push up as they've already lost the second half, or the first half of this, the second half of the map. And now they only have half of the distance to go to actually stop Luminosity Gaming. In this push-up, they do get Milo. But importantly, Luminosity is able to farm up 3 of their ultimates. Specifically, the 4th one coming up as they respawn, being Pooks. Now Seagull, once again, with his individual decision-making, is able to create the opportunity needed for his team to be in an advantaged position. Harassing here with his Dragon Blade, he begins to see the breakdown of the defense. Specifically, he sees the 3 heroes that he needs to be able to push in hard. He knows that his Winston's coming in. So right here, when he turns the corner, he's going to be seeing that Reinhardt, Mei, and McCree are all positioned on the left side. Eventually, Lucio comes running over there as well, which makes it 4 heroes. With deductive logic, Seagull is able to assess that the Mercy has to be either to the far left or the far right. But seeing the healing beam, he will know she's to the far right, and will use his Dragon Blade to go in. This is coordinated with Milo dropping his barrier to give Seagull the opportunity to go to the left side to bounce to the right side. Using again the Dragon Blade to clear distance faster and this barrier to get past the threats, he immediately goes straight on to the Mercy. Using his deflect, he survives any aggression that comes out from the McCree to try to stop him. But you can see his goal is to zone and kill this Mercy. He gets the health patch that she ends up missing, and he dies. But he gets resurrected. At this point, JKW charges in because the comms on EnvyUs have to be saying, guys, we have lost control of the payload, and it is pushing up. It's made it all the way through the corridor, and it only ends up stopping in this fight once the resurrection goes out by Ross at the yellow line at the beginning of the parking section. This is all Luminosity needed. And again, watching this at full speed, we can see that the individual decision it took there for Seagull and the coordination from his team to get in there and push back the roster of EnvyUs creates an incredibly awkward situation for EnvyUs that Luminosity capitalizes on and moves the payload all the way to within a few meters. This makes it very easy for the final and third play that we're going to watch in just a second that Enigma pulls off for them to actually cap it. But again, so far here, Seagull, with his 2 individual plays, is responsible for getting the first cap on the point, on the first checkpoint for the payload, but is also responsible here for creating the opportunity for the payload to be near the final checkpoint. EnvyUs scrambles to deal with this situation. They lose a lot of heroes, but do have the resurrection, and Ross comes in very clutch there. And this will reset the fight. But again, Luminosity has done what they needed to, and the damage is done. And that's all that matters in these plays. Sometimes winning a fight is not necessarily about getting the actual checkpoint or getting the actual payload. Sometimes winning a fight is getting ultimates recharged, and sometimes winning a fight is getting yourself in a position so that the next fight will decide the outcome of the game. And that's this case. So now it's Enigma's turn. Specifically, Enigma here is going to survive in a situation that ultimately most people should not or would not survive in. The wall here from Tailspin is absolutely amazing, preventing any reinforcements from coming up to Milo. However, Gods and Seagull push up into the wall, wanting to help him, and die. This puts Luminosity in a critical position as they're down 2 heroes in a 4v6. Enigma, isolated in the back right, as Coolmat, using his Primal Rage, is trying to get him down, ends up surviving as per getting to him. Enigma starts getting harassed by Tailspin and immediately one-taps him, with quick reaction time in that decision. Noticing that everyone is going after Milo and that he's in trouble, he immediately pops the Death Blossom onto the payload, killing Stoop, assisting in the kill in JKM, and now he'll actually, or JKW, sorry, and zone back Winston. This forces JKM, or JKW, who gets resurrected here, to actually charge into Enigma, and again leave no tank on the payload so that Luminosity can go ahead and push up. So from Enigma's individual play there, the team of Luminosity was able to get on the payload here with a sound barrier, already having the resurrection down, and in an advantaged position. The big thing with all 3 of these is that when an individual makes strong plays or decisions, it opens up opportunities for your team. Again, the recap here of Enigma is that his individual play killed 3 players, forced a resurrection, and forced JKW to charge out of position to be able to deal with what he was doing to his backline. And this all comes off of the back of them losing the beginning of the fight. They're down in a 4v6 this entire time, and Enigma is still going to be able to pull off this play. Because of that individual decision making, again, the team rallying back with Pooks' sound barrier at the end of this, and Esper being able to catch up with them, is able to set up on the payload. Gods gets a high noon off in the background that isn't answered. It kills Ross, and then again here the charge. And the enemy team, EnvyUs, is going to be having an extremely hard time resetting up the sound barrier, better usage because of the opportunities that Enigma created. And Seagull will get Enigma does get resurrected along with Milo here, and they end up capping the point. Now that we've looked at all 3 plays, it's easier to see that while the strategy Luminosity executes on this last section of the map is itself very strong, being incredibly mobile, stealing lots of tempo, and able to dominate the opponent whenever they make a misstep, a lot of the situations that Luminosity gets themselves into come off the back of individual decisions from 2 being Seagull and 1 being Enigma. Seagull being able to survive for an incredibly long period of time by himself in the background after they had lost this critical fight is what allows them to cap the point after having 2 minutes of completely stopped aggression. If Seagull had died at any point during that, Milo would have not been able to be one-on-one versus Tailspin. There would have been backup coming from that right section of the fight. But again, the team of EnvyUs has to focus so much attention on the fact that Seagull is still alive. They haven't killed him and they need to take care of him. Because of that opportunity and those 2 fights going well on both sides, even though Gods dies to Tailspin, Milo ends up getting Tailspin and JKW goes down. And another player goes down in the background to the fight between Seagull and Pooks, they're able to get this control point cap and move forward onto the next section of the map. In fact, they're able to win it so hard that EnvyUs is forced to back up and set up at this corridor, but even thinking about doing anything to stop EnvyUs or Luminosity Gaming's advances. The second play, coming out of Seagull, again creates the opportunity where they're able to get the payload onto the final checkpoint. He's able to get onto the backline, zone the Mercy all the way back to her spawn, while still being focused by 4 different heroes. And in that situation, if he died at any point in time, or if he got focused down, then the enemy team or EnvyUs would have been able to quickly turn around and deal with the advances that were coming. So again, it's incredibly important that these 2 plays by Seagull happen, and they actually set up his team. If they don't, the number of decisions and plays that would be required by the other players to get the same outcome would be much higher and ultimately not happen. So again, when you have a strong player, when you are a strong player, when you feel like you can make strong plays, it is incredibly important in games like this, as it will open up opportunities for you to win the game outright. In this last play that we watch, it is incredibly important to note that Enigma is down 2 other damage sources. He's by himself versus the Winston with Primal Rage. He has to fight Tailspin by himself. And the Death Blossom he gets is responsible for taking out JKW, and is responsible for taking out Tailspin, as well as Stoops. So 3 kills go to him by himself, and then Ross has to use the Resurrection just to account for an individual's play. This next push that comes out with the Sound Barrier and Esper and the Resurrection, there's little to no answer, as EnvyUs is already down players, down heroes, down a Sound Barrier, and of course has lost the Resurrection. Individual decision-making and individual plays will win games of Overwatch. And I want it to be very clear that while strategy is incredibly important in a team game, the synergy between having an individual that can make plays that set up your strategies is as important as a strategy for setting up an individual to make those plays. In a game like this, it is a yin and yang, an ebb and flow between strategy and individual. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Stratwatch, and I can't wait for the game to be coming out on the 24th. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to check out any of my other content, Please check out the playlist below, linked in the description. You can follow the channel, and on the channel itself there is a link to my blog, Twitter, and any other social media, such as my Twitch. Thank you again, and have a great evening.